Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat, and here I'm today finally doing my retrospective video here on Sword Art Online War of the Underworld Part 1. Or rather, if you're talking about just Alicization, it's Alicization from episodes 25 through 36. So, yeah, divided into technically 3 parts, but what I'll be covering is what's quote-unquote the second part of it. So, basically from Kirito being turned into a vegetable all the way to the part where Sinone shows up and saves Asuna. So from those parts onward. And first things first, this video will probably end up being more negative than positive. And depending on how long I ran about certain things, this can either be a 10-minute video, this can be a 5-minute video, or this can be a 5-hour video. And I don't even know yet because I'm just one-shotting this based on the notes that I've typed out and written out so I can try to stay focused on this video. But nonetheless, I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to start with some of the stuff I actually really ended up liking about War of the Underworld. First things first, I still really like Alice as a character, especially early on when they really emphasize how she's very thankful for Kirito and how she's very protective of him, as he was the reason why she's still alive to that point. She wasn't killed by Administrator. Thanks him for his sacrifice, and she blames herself for that sacrifice, as in she's the Integrity Knight, but she needed someone who's a commoner fight for her. And they really play with those emotions pretty well early on, that balance, and the fact that she's kind of always just on the precipice of just really having this meltdown that she's barely able to hold in, and the fact that the show really emphasizes that is a third dimensionality that they rarely add to characters in this show. And that's something I ended up really liking. And also the fact that she has to balance her duties Integrity Knight with the fact that Kirito is still technically a enemy of the state, but you can't see it that way because he saved her life, and the fact that she still has to defend the church and really creating this nice little conflict that she has, albeit they kind of throw this away halfway through when she just joins the army and no one really is like reacts to it. It's like, oh, hi Alice, like nothing happened, which is a bit of a fault, but more on the faults later. And I want to bring up couple of the characters. There are quite a few new characters brought up here in War of the Underworld. However, there's two I really want to shout out as characters I ended up liking. First, you have Sheikta, also known as Synthesis Knight 12, who is the badass sword lady. And I honestly, like, this isn't as much good characterization as much as I guess I'm a sucker for the type of character where it's like girl with obvious psychological issues, but is really badass. And that's something that she fills to a T perfectly with her fight with Ishkan. More on him later. Just that whole fight, this whole like predestination in this weird way where it's like she knows she could kill him easily, but she just has to go through his hand because that's the strongest part. She has to prove herself she can beat him with difficult settings on max. And that's something I really liked about her character. I love her demeanor. I loved her personality. And that was, like I said, that fight she had with Ishkan was probably one of the highlights of this season. Now more on Ishkan. He's another character I really came to like. He was the leader of the Pugilist Guild of the Dark Territory. Of all the different, like, leaders of all the different factions of the army, he is far and away the best one, in my opinion, because he's the only one that decided to give more than one dimension to. I have him being this punch drunk, like, very happy to punch, throws punches, everything, will be very willing to take a hit if it means he can throw his punches forward, that type of personality. And the fact that he really develops this almost friendly rivalry with Sheikta in this way, where they have this really kind of borderline playful banter before each other, even though they're supposed to be dire enemies. And the fact that he knows that she's probably going to destroy him with her sword, but at the same time realizes, I need to give my all and I need to go full-fledged. I can't back away now. And I really just love that mentality he has. I love his personality. And I love that he's also like the only character who realized how bad a leader Vecta is. I don't mean bad as in evil. I mean as in he has no strategy. So when he had that strategy where it's like throw the ropes across this cavern and climb across it, he's like, there is no way they're not going to notice this. We're going to be just off the other side. And he notices this, goes against, has his eye explode, and you really see this full-fledged just flowering of his character into this like full-on man for hire, owned by no one character, and I really came to love that about him. And one other thing I really liked about the season is just Bercouli. Like, nothing in particular. It's just the fact that he's just awesome. Like, really, it's just a character that just emanates cool, emanates awesome. And that's just something that Bercouli has. And that's just really he ends up probably being my favorite character in the whole show because of that. And now let me go into the bad stuff of this season. There are a lot of bad stuff that happens in this season. I'm going to break this up time by time. This is very roughly chronological from the start of the show to the end. But I'm going to bounce back and forth definitely because I'm really cutting this up by like certain locations and settings. First things first, let's go with what happens in the turtle. At the end of Alicization, it is revealed that the turtle is being ambushed. We later learn that it's a paramilitary group hired by the U.S. military to take Alice to use her artificial intelligence to pilot drones in the Middle East. That's the rough and short of it. And they have 24 hours to do this before the Japanese Navy comes in and stops them. So they have a ticking clock, very simple premise, and they very easily invade and they go to the main control room, no problem. And they make sense early on, saying, basically rationalizing, the only way to get it is to physically get in the game, grab her, and take her to the World's End altar. Fair enough, especially since they ended up giving reasonable excuses why they can't just simply go through the computer because the hacker guy stopped them. But nonetheless, and now I'm going to go to the first issue I have. Like, you have clearly these, like, the bad guys with the main frame, like, the main location that all the computer manipulations happening. Like you have their nerd guy, he's working on the computer the whole time throughout the season, and that's implied. However, they briefly show, like, 40 minutes before that, they had, like, the good guys had this meeting, and they decided, okay, let's send Asuna into the game, because we probably won't be able to access stuff, and the best thing is to have someone on the inside who's been in this type of reality to do it, and what else but someone who's been in this exact situation twice before. So, good reasonable sense. And then you have her come in. And then later they still show that they're accessing, like, the mainframe from a different standpoint, which just seems like the most stupid plot contrivance you can really come up with. Like, you have the whole, oh no, we can't use this. Oh wait, we just happen to have the exact same thing in this convenient location that they don't know about, but we do. Which, even from that main point, makes no sense because it's strongly implied that the people who came in, the paramilitary group, already had the know-how of how Wrath works, knew about the turtle, and knew about how it's set up. Thereby, they knew exactly where to go to access the mainframe, no problem. So if that's true, you would think they would know about the backup area too. It'd be like, hey, maybe we should send a couple guys with guns over there and make sure they can't, screw with what we're about to do here. And that's just one big issue right there. And then, like I said, back to Asuna being put in, and they imply this is right before the time where the paramilitary group gets into the mainframe. So from that, you can infer that this is before Vecta and the other guy were put into the game. However, Asuna doesn't actually show up until, like, near the end of the war, which is many in-game days after Vecta and the other guys show up and become the leaders, become the key figures in the Dark Territory. So basically, it's like, well, we're only going to have her show up because it's convenient for her to work as a Deus Ex Machina at this point, And that just makes no sense. Like, it's so obvious, it's like, oh, you know how we forgot about... We literally waited many episodes to not reintroduce this character, so it would be this complete, utter, mind-blowing moment when this character comes in, and it feels like this everything's coming together point, when really it's just plot contrivance and not good writing. And also the fact that the high-level Dark Territory counts weren't stopped, weren't, like, put behind some type of a firewall or whatever. Because you have the nerd guy come in and even comment, like, oh, like the Underworld accounts, the high level ones, that guy locked it away. Oh, wait a minute, he didn't do the Dark Territory ones, so I'm going to make you the Supreme Ruler, and I'm going to make you some other high level fighting guy. Have fun. You're basically already on God mode. And then, like, you have this, and then you have the flashback where the nerd guy mentions the fact that, there's these Dark Territory accounts, thinks about it for a second and decides not to block them. And then it's like the only explanation for this, and this is kind of implied to give the show credit, that there's someone on the inside in Wrath who's screwing with it, screwing with the process that Asuna was able to deduce from herself. And it would only make sense if the nerd guy is the mole the whole time, which just seems like a trope that, well, you think it's the shifty guy who talks smooth and suave and stuff, but it's the nerd guy the whole time, which is gonna happen. I'm gonna call it out in the next 12 episodes. That guy, the nerd guy with the glasses, can't remember his name, he will be the evil guy in all of this. And I'm expecting it, but at the same time, it just seems stupid, especially at the same time they're able to give Asuna, literally made her a god character, by the way. They made her like this Empress of the Earth character. I can't remember. Stacia, that's her character's name, which more on Asuna in a minute too. You should see this coming because it's sort of online. But and also one more thing, the turtle. There are no rules with the time dilation. By time dilation, I mean the fact that, let's say, an hour in real life is like this much time in the Underworld. They changed this multiple times, and I'm not talking about the one time where he changes it to 1-to-1 time, because that actually made sense, albeit a stupid decision for strategy, but it made sense to put. That's how they got the Americans in the game, so to convince them it's just a video game world by making 1 minute equal 1 minute there. But at the same time, it's just, especially when it's like, they mention at one point that it's roughly 6-to-1 time dilation, and then like later on it's like, wow, it's been 6 hours, that's 1 year there, why haven't they taken Alice there? Like this, like changing time, because if you don't change time like this, it's going to make all the plot issues, including Asuna appearing way later than she should have, and at the perfect plot moment, make even less sense. Okay, that's the more enough for the turtle for now. Now I want to talk about the quote-unquote load test, or basically the fight between good or evil, or the fight between the underworld and the dark territory, or the ripoff of Stephen King's The Stand. That's the only thing I could think of when thinking about this. Mentally, when I see like the wall fall and them start to fight, the only thing I could think of is "Don't Fear the Reaper" by the Blue Oyster Cult blaring in my head, because that would make so much sense during this. First things first, the animation is just god awful for the fighting. And this is just a trend that's happening a lot of anime now, where there's this increased embracing of 3D animation. Because, like I said, Japan is very slow to take up 3D. It's kind of seen as this badge of pride in anime that it's a two-dimensional art, and they scoff at like the Americans, them and their computer animation stuff. But Japan has really, in recent years, started to really take it on. And the first main usage of this is in like fight scenes like this. Now, some of the puppet movements, and that's the best way to describe it, puppet movements rather than solid animation, just reminds me not of Genlock. At least Genlock kinda looks functional. This reminds me of those really bad Soviet propaganda cartoons from like the 1970s, where it'd be like a character, like the entire body of the character moves up and down and stuff. And there's like obviously bad, like obviously behind the times, and you obviously are paying these workers very little to do this, and they don't care at this point. It just reminds me so much of that, you know. And also, more about the load test is the character of DIL. And she's a character I admittedly kind of played up myself, because I mentioned the fact that she had, in the English, in the English version, she had the same voice actress of Hara Hara Haruko. So I really built it up as, oh, she's going to be this very aggressive, chaotic goddess of war or something. She ends up being probably the worst guild leader. Like, you have all the other guild leaders, like you have the goblin leader, he goes into battle, he fights alongside his men, and he dies in battle. You have the orc leader, he goes in battle, he fights with men, and he dies in battle. You have the hog guy, the pig guy. He had to sacrifice 3,000 of his old soldiers. More on that in a minute, but in like the emotion he has in like 30 seconds of screen time, like the brief moment he has, is so much better than many of these other guild leaders, especially DIL, had. And it's just impressive because and she's incompetent, by the way. Like, first things first, she sends all of her animals, all of like the ungodly abomination flying creatures, to attack them from above. Well, too bad Berkuli did one perfect ultimate weapon control and killed all of them, instantaneously. That's like half her army right there. Half her army just got one shot. And then she's like, okay, I'll have my sages with my wolf. I forgot what she called him. My actual wolf archery division, and have the mages, female mage division, give them spells that make their weapons strong. And then like immediately the mages decide, like not decide, but they discover, oh wait, we can't do this. What's going on? They notice that for the last like 30 minutes, that Alice just floating above, collecting all the souls of all the dead people. She nukes them from orbit, kills like 90% of them. So at this point, there's just like a couple of the wolf archers who happen to survive, and like a handful of the mages, including her two personal assistants, left. It's like, well, your entire guild just got two shots right now. So much for you being built up as this very strong, cunning character. And then now she basically begs Vecta, okay, I can take him out. I just need like 3,000 dead people to really build up the spiritual power. Vecta, who, like I established, doesn't know the first thing about war. He sucks at this. Is like, okay, who's left? Okay, the hogs are still alive. Okay, I'll give you 3,000 of them. The leader will determine which 3,000. And she's like, really? Like, she's even surprised at this point because she knows she's incompetent at this point. But meanwhile, Vecta's like, no, I'll be fine. So then the pig leader's like, what the hell? Why do I have to sacrifice 3,000 of my soldiers, including my wife, for this to work? Oh, and unsurprisingly, this doesn't work either. Like, she technically kills an Integrity Knight, but it's an Integrity Knight with bad characterization. More on that in a minute, too. So you killed one Integrity Knight who's admittedly a trainee, and you had everyone in your entire guild is dead at this point, including, and this is including 3,000 people you sacrificed from another guild, so that guild is not going to be able to do anything because they're mostly dead already. You sacrificed two guilds to take out one Integrity Knight, who you can tell the plot was setting up to be killed off pretty early too. Like, that's incompetence on an unbelievable level there. And she just kind of like cries about it, gets angry, and kills her two assistants. But they do it in such a way to kind of imply that she just swallowed their spirits to keep her alive. So they kind of foreshadow she's still alive, but she hasn't heard from the last 5 or 6 episodes of the season. So maybe the show killed her off and forgot that they kept her alive, you know? And more on Vecta just sucking as a general. Like I already mentioned, just this whole thing about sacrificing all these soldiers, kill one Integrity Knight. And then you have him be like, oh, just directly go all in and attack. And he even knew that, they're leading us into this weird valley. There's no sunlight in this valley. There's nothing that's growing in this valley. So we can't charge our mana here. Our mana here. Let's just proceed and go directly into this valley anyway. Like, have you ever heard of the whole, like, the poem Charge of the Light Brigade by Lord Alfred Tennyson? It's about a battle in the Crimean War where you have a bunch of soldiers going into battle, into like the jaws of hell, knowing that they'll probably won't return, but just talking about the bravery of them from going into this battle in the first place. It's like this, except for there is no pride or nobility in it, because these people just come in expecting an easy win. They're like, oh, there's like 20 Integrity Knights left, and there's like millions of us. We're gonna win. But instead, they just get slaughtered off. Not as much that the Integrity Knights are that strong, it's just the fact that their leader can't lead at this point. And admittedly, I'll give Vecta credit this. I'll give him some leeway because he doesn't care about the war itself. He just wants to be able to capture Alice because, like I said, and at this point, they give him a kind of an interesting side motive. They motive that, oh, he's a complete psychopath, so he's not going to take her to the World's End altar and get the AI for the American government. He's like, no. What I'm going to do is swallow her spirit because I had this weird thing when I was like an 8-year-old. I accidentally killed this girl, swallowed her spirit, and it gave me an orgasm. So if there's this like very strong female and I swallow her spirit and she's an AI, it's going to make me reach this inner state of nirvana or something, which honestly makes more sense than 90% of the other stuff that happens in the season, so I'll give it credit there. So basically, he just wants Alice. So he's playing for Alice. He's not playing to win. And at the same time, he even sucked at doing this until Alice decides to end the season, oh, I'm going to run to this hill to get a better shot. She just runs to this open field, and he's like, okay, I can just fly on with my giant dragon and just grab her at this point because everything else failed, which is kind of a trope if you really look into media of the whole villain. Everything the villain does fails, but by sheer luck, he happens to get his way towards the end of the movie or the episode or whatever. And then the characters have to confront him later about it. But at the same time, he doesn't know how to fight a war because he goes into a valley knowing that he shouldn't. And then the fact that he sacrifices a guild to appease this other guild leader who sucks at this, which the show played her up, by the way, because he had Commander Shasta early in the season talking to a woman who gets killed in the next episode, his fiance, about like, okay, I want to reach peace with Perkuli. Okay, I think I can get like the orc and goblin leaders on my side, maybe. But man, this woman is a psychopath. She wants war at all costs. I probably have to kill her. And like they play her up only for her to be completely worthless at the end. And then now I'm going to go now into the Integrity Knights because there's quite a few new Integrity Knight characters we haven't seen before that are in this season. First things first, you have Renly. I had to look that name up, also known as the green-haired guy. And first things first, before I go into his character, I want to go into casting. This is something I've never mentioned in any of my videos because for the most part, anime these days, I think does a very good job of casting the right people to voice the right characters. And also the fact that anime has really improved, like dubbing has really improved the last couple decades in that response. If you want to see horrible early dubbing, go look at the dub of Ghost Stories. The dub is its own abridged series. It's amazing. That's how bad it is. So now on about this. This is the first time I can honestly, seriously disagree with a casting decision made. Renly, and here's the thing, it's common in animation, American animation, and in anime, that if you have a young male character, usually a boy, it's common practice to have that be voiced by a woman because women have naturally higher pitched voices, so they can kind of do that prepubescent boy voice better. And you see this most notably with, well, first example that comes to mind, if you think of The Simpsons, Bart Simpson is voiced by a woman. And also in anime, The Promised Neverland, Rey is voiced by a woman. And I say this because I haven't looked this up, but I'm pretty sure the same woman also voices Renly, because she sounds so much like Rey. That's just, maybe I'm wrong in that. But at the same time, I get they're kind of trying to make him more of a cowardly character. But considering this is supposed to be a guy like in his 30s at this point, it just seems kind of jarring to have him be voiced by a woman like that. But at the same time, I'm not thinking like, oh, give him a manly voice. Get Chris Tagliaferro to voice him or something like that. But I mean, at the same time, it just seems awkward listening to him, you know. And again, more on that. Like, is there like some like like thing being an Integrity Knight where you kind of like you're brainwashed into being like this strong automaton of a character, but this just doesn't seem like what happens to Renly. It's like it's like first thing he does in battle is run to the supply tent where he has to get defended by girls with PTSD. That's basically his plot line. And then he just decides, oh, I got this shuriken thing. Might as well use it. He throws it a couple times and kills a couple of characters. And magically he's this strong man in war now, which is just a horrible, like very quick character arc they give him. At the same time, they play him in such a way that you're supposed to care about his problems, but it's hard to care about someone that you're just seeing for the first time here. And that's a very common theme with the Integrity Knights in this season, where they really try to make you feel for the characters, but these are characters you know very little about, or at the same time, you really can't care much about because what they do give you with them is framed in the context of Kirito has to defeat them, so you're feeling more for Kirito than for these Integrity Knights, which is just a fundamental flaw this season has. Another new character is this Eldrie character. Eldrie, or Integrity Synthesis Knight number 31, is played. They do give him a little background, as in he's Alice's trainee. And you have this scene early on where he flies to her place, tries to convince her to join the army again. She refuses and talks about, well, as much as I still feel bad, I have nothing but love for you because you're the person who trained me, and I have nothing but love and care for you as my mentor. And that's just this really good scene they give him early on. But then they give this weird framing where it's like, oh, he had this wife or girlfriend that they show very vaguely. They never show her face like a couple times that he's like devout to. But they never explain this. They imply like, oh, she got killed somehow, but they never explain this. They never explain this character, this connection at all. And then when he dies, he's the one Integrity Knight who DILs happens to be able to kill. He's like, oh, I'm with you now. I love you. I can be with you. But it's like there's no payoff because you don't know about this relationship that much. There's no connection to that. It's not. These are characters you're just really knowing for the first time ever, and they try to play it off like this is massive moment. And same thing goes with Finaccio too. And like you have Finaccio, she has this big personal moment when she's killing, I think, the Goblin King. Is the Goblin or the Orc King? I can't remember. She killed one of them. And it's after that the Orc or Goblin King kills this like knight in waiting she has, who's this random woman, this girl who we've never seen before, never heard of before. But it's played off like this amazing personal moment. Like you have the strings start swelling with emotion, and you don't know who these characters are. And it's supposed to be this big, massive moment for her. Like, it'd be even better if they had them like at least like cut off Berkuli's arm or seriously wound him, because you already established that she's secretly in love with him. Like you could have played off that characterization from earlier with her, because like you already had this whole thing where like they explain that like, oh, she doesn't have anything against men now because Kirito took her seriously in battle. And it was established that it wasn't because she had anything against men, it was because Berkuli rejected her advances. And you could still play like she's still holding a flame for him and really do a great job with this, but you elect for some random grunt soldier that happens to be some personal soldier she has that we've never explained, and they give this like personal moment when she's dying. Like they spend like a quarter of an episode on this alone. They still play it off like this massive moment when none of this matters, because you know at the end Finaccio's gonna kill the goblin guy, and it's just so pointless. But enough on that. I want to go away from the new characters, and the next thing I want to cover is just this giant laundry list of just dumb decisions people make. First things first, I want to go on the character I'm going to refer to as the hacker guy in Team America World Police, because it's the guy with the glasses who's operating the mainframe now, who's part of the paramilitary force who's trying to take Alice. He made quite a few dumb decisions. I could go all day with this. I just want to point out a couple of the dumb ones he made. First things first, the one strength that they had was the time dilation, the fact that they only had 24 hours in the real world, but that's literally established to be like 3-4 years in this world. So when they sent people in to take Alice, they knew that time was on their side because they could formulate their own plans and really make sure they have this bona fide plan to take Alice. However, the first, like, not the first thing he does, but when during the battle, he decides, okay, like he correctly notices, yeah, the Dark Territory is probably going to lose this war. So he's like, okay, I'm going to change the time dilation to 1-to-1. Now, what this does is that this puts the ticking clock not just in his hands, but in the hands of Vecta too. And Vecta, this is bad because Vecta doesn't know that how the ticking clock is on him now. So he's going to keep maybe taking decisions that would take a little time because he thinks, well, I still have like a year or two of game time left. I can really make sure I can take Alice. But no, at this time, it's just like, and admittedly, the reason he did this is to be like, okay, let's just take the plot of the original Sword Art Online and just throw it in this one too. He's like, okay, how about I get a bunch of Americans to think that this is a game, put them in this world, and tell them, oh, it's a beta test for a game. Just fight a bunch of people. Don't worry, no one's going to get hurt. As if, I've definitely never heard this one before, but what do you know? But so he does this, and on paper, this kind of sounds like a smart idea because you're increasing your ranks. But then he forgot the fact that these Americans have no idea what the actual war is. So what he's doing at this point is just like, so he's like, puts them in, and the first thing they're going to think of is, hey, how about we fight the people who don't look like us? So instead of fighting the Integrity Knights, who are at least very humanoid and look human, they fight all the like monsters and creatures, and the pugilists who are humanoid, but don't look as human as the Integrity Knights. Let's fight them because they must be the bad guy that we totally have to fight in this. So basically, this hacker guy just sent a bunch of not fighters to fight his own army at this point, which is absolutely hysterical. Like, even Integrity Knight's like, how? They're fighting the other guys. What the hell? And Asuna is like, they must be adding them in. Like, Asuna figures this out, and even Asuna is like, then why are they fighting their fighters? Which just makes it even more hysterical just how stupid that decision is. But nonetheless, also, and again, his ace in the hole involves more American fighters. It's like, oh, only like half of them are fighting there. But when this force tries to catch up with Vector, who's heading towards the World's End altar, I'm going to drop a whole bunch of American soldiers on this location, and they will stop and defeat him. Well, too bad, because one Japanese cat girl just shows up and just laser blasts them like Apollo. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, well, what do you know? You did this whole thing. You changed time dilation, put in a bunch of American fighters. They kill a bunch of your armed forces, and then they get one blasted by a cat girl. And even you have the other, like the mentally deranged guy, and he gets knocked out because he gets killed by Asuna. And he's like, wait, what the hell? Why did this take this long? What do you mean you changed the dilation to one-on-one? Like, even the crazy guy knows how stupid you are. That's amazing. That's incompetence on a global level. I am personally wondering if that's as incompetent as DIL, because both of them should just get married, because they're the two most incompetent people on the show. It's just amazing. Now about dumb decisions, I'm going to take this time to dump on Vector once again. He has no battle strategy. He's like, oh, I'm just going to mash the castle towers. I'm just going to send all my people in, fight, because I've never played any strategy game in my life, right? So ultimately, and he's like, and again, like I said, he offed 3,000 soldiers for one spill that killed an Integrity Knight who who really isn't as important as like an Alice or a Braculi or a Finaccio, or at this point, even Renly is probably a better fighter at this point. That's just stupid. And now, what everyone's been waiting for, me to dump on Asuna as a character. Well, first things first, it's established that her character coming in, it's like, okay, they told her you're basically a god. However, your limitation is that you can only do terraforming like 2 times. So make sure use them only when you absolutely have to. And admittedly, although she immediately does this, I can give her some credit because it kills one of the 2 bad guys of the season, and it more or less takes out the entire Dark Territory force that had figured out Renly's trap and gone around towards the supply core. So I'll give her some credit there. But note at this point, she's half tapped out, and even after this, she gets this massive headache showing, okay, she can't keep doing this willy-nilly. She has to really be certain about the next time she uses it, right? And you think, okay, she's been in multiple game simulations before. Like, people dump on her all the time as a character, but you gotta figure out, okay, this girl has like, a lot of experience in this type of situation. She'll eventually know what to do. She's battle savvy. She can at least wield a sword very well. And they show this, fortunately. But you would think, okay, then she would definitely know when to use her one last blast, right? She absolutely has to. Well, she clearly doesn't, because she blew her last load immediately when the American soldiers showed up. She's like, what's going on here? She blows another ridge up, and it's like, well, you're tapped out now. And it's like, okay, maybe you can rub one more out. Other than this, you're tapped. You have nothing you can do here, right? So then, like, okay, and she wastes this on a nothing burger of a situation because, like I said, the American soldiers just decide, screw it, let's fight the Pugilist Guild, and that's what set Iskan off. Is like, okay, screw this, screw the Dark Territory. I'm me now. I'm gonna fight for me now, and I'm deciding, screw these American random red soldiers here. I'm willing to fight with the Integrity Knights, you know. And then again, back to Asuna here again. So at this point, she has maybe one more shot. Maybe one more. So then you have Ishkan show up and be like, hey, I saw that you did that ridge valley. You created those crevices. That's cool. Knowing you can terraform, can you make a bridge so my soldiers come over here and fight with you guys? Totally, let's put our differences aside because Vector's pulling one on all of us too. Let's fight together and stop this and then figure stuff out from there. And then she creates land bridges, which has to be her last stretch of what she can do with terraforming at this point. But at this point, she's tapped out. If the plot was to make sense, she can't do anything anymore. She's absolutely nothing. All she is someone who can use her sword. So at this point, she's more or less a worthless character again, which for Sword Online fans is kind of a return to normal, but at the same time, I mean, and that's just really sad to see because you would think a character who's been in this situation many times would learn from her previous experiences and like get better each time. And again, that's just not really. She just doesn't learn. That's just the thing with her. She doesn't learn. And one more thing, and this is something a lot of people brought up. There is this thing that a lot of people were hyping up. Oh, what's going to happen when Asuna meets Alice? Because if Alice, who's been this caretaker, and become the pseudo mother figure with Kirito, and it was kind of established in the end of the first episode that she's kind of in love with Kirito too. And then you have Asuna, who has been living with Kirito and has been with them since literally day one here. So, oh, what's going to happen? And you would think, and they kind of do this where they briefly have this fight. Berkuli breaks them up. And if it was just that, then that's good because it's like this little expression of frustration. But at the same time, they get together. They have a common goal with Kirito. And they can put their differences aside and just fight as one unit. And it'll be awesome. However, they stretch this weird cat fighting thing over like half an episode. And here's the thing, it's not just them. You have Lena, who was the woman who trained Kirito at the beginning and taught him her very bizarre sword fighting style, kind of join in too. And then you have his trainee kind of come in and be like, well, I'm kind of taking care of him too, and he's like my mentor, he's my senpai. And it turns into this awkward love square at this. Well, there's five. Well, technically, including Kirito, there's five people, so it's a love pentagon, or rather a pentagram at this point that's going on here between these characters. And it's just this. Why? At this point, you have like 2 episodes left. You have less than 2 episodes left in this like mini season. So it's like, why are you spending so much time this late on something so petty? And it's just so frustrating that as soon as some action happens, you have this Kirito harem stuff happen again. It's just so nauseating, to watch. And there's one more thing I want to tap into. There's a lot of stuff I can point out, but there's only one more thing I want to address because this is something that kind of divides the Sword Art Online community as well. And that's Lisbeth's speech at the end of the 11th episode. And basically, the premise is, at this point, they know that, a bunch of Americans have been sent in the fight, which doesn't work for them because it's the middle of the day in the US, and since Japan's the other side of the world, it's the middle of the night, so there's not that many Japanese people they can tap into to fight against the Americans. So, what are you going to do? Okay, we're going to go into this game MMORG that we've been in, and it's basically try to give this rousing speech to try to convince those gamers to come over and fight. And then basically you have Lisbeth give this originally a decent speech, and then you have one of the other guild leaders be like, I've been told there are risks with this. What are the risks? Which is a very good question to ask here. And Lisbeth is like, okay, so if you go into this world and if you get killed, your character gets wiped out. You can't unlog from the game unless your character gets killed. Oh, and also you can feel the pain. So at this point, you're telling them, oh, by the way, all this years of work I had my character is going to go by the wayside. I'm going to go by to the wayside, and I am going to feel mortal pain from this. And like any rational person, everyone calls her out on this. And then the part, oh my god, and the part that everyone calls the quote-unquote gamers rise up moment. And that's the thing. Everyone analyzes this from like a gamers rise up speech. It's a gamers rise up moment. I don't see it that way. And some people's like, oh, it's great because of the gamer rise up moment. People's like, oh, it's stupid because of the gamers rise up moment. No, it's even worse. Basically, Lisbeth spends the next 2 minutes guilt tripping you into joining her army. She's like, oh, I have to go to a special school because, remember, she's from the original Sword Art Online, so she has PTSD from that. PTSD is a common theme in this. If you're PTSD, it's either you survived a killing game or the fact that you're one of a disturbing large number of rape victims in this series. You have PTSD, But then she's like, I got PTSD from this game. I have to go to a special school. I have to take medication. The government hates me. And then like everyone's just kind of guilted into, and it's not even like they're like behind her as much as, geez, mom, I guess I'll take out the trash. Geez. And that's just, and that sucks because I really wanted to like her character. From the brief moments they give her before the speech, they really let on that she's this decent character, but then they just really just dump her character by the wayside there. And it's just so frustrating to watch because, and that's just a common theme in this season. Whenever something gets going and stuff looks good, they just destroy it somehow. They either have a character rant about how she has PTSD, or they have all the female characters decide to form another harem around Kirito, which is impressive considering he's a vegetable this entire season. And I think at this point, when Kirito dies, they need to donate his body to science because I think the world's men needs to learn the secret of just something in his DNA that just makes him develop a harem without even trying. And that's important for science at this point because that's impressive. And again, that's just all the issues I have with Sword Online from this season. I'm looking forward to complaining about it when the next season starts airing in Toonami, probably really late this year because the initial sub version got delayed back to July. What do you guys think? What are your opinions on the season? Did you actually listen to my entire rant here? Leave a comment, please. If you like this content, for more content like this, like and comment because apparently that's what YouTube wants to keep your channel afloat. And please subscribe to my channel as well. I am Super Orange Cat, and that is all.